Hello, people. How's everyone doing today? The pagan world, ancient religions. This audiobook is brought to us by Great Courses. They also have other books such as The Ancient Egyptian World, which I happen to like very much, and a host of other books that I would like to peruse and see how interesting they might be to read. Our guide through this enchanted forest is Professor Han. So, that being said, let's get ready to take a trip with Professor Han back to one of my favorite towns, ancient Egypt.
From the 17th chapter of the Book of the Dead, a text dating back to at least 2000 BCE. This was a collection of spells buried with the deceased to help the dead person's spirit navigate the next world. Again, we deal with a text composed for other practical purposes that only incidentally informs us about Atum's creation. The first stanza of the spell promises to help the dead person with exaltations and beatifications in the necropolis, that is, with being happy in the city of the dead. It will also help the dead person become an effective spirit in the beautiful West, that is, one will be a soul of some importance and with free will in the land of the dead. In this lecture, however, we are interested in general theological conceptions, so let us proceed to the second stanza. I am Atum. When I was alone in noon, the primordial waters of chaos. I am Re, the sun, in his first appearances, when began to rule that which he had made. Atum reveals himself as the first god and the one who arose from chaos. He then explains that he created himself. I am the great god who came into being by himself. He identifies himself with the great sun god Re and then claims credit for creating the other 9 great gods of the Ennead. He who created his names, the Lord of the Ennead. Who is he? He is Re, who created the names of the parts of his body. That is how these gods who follow him came into being. How did Atum Re accomplish the creation? He named the other gods. He speaks the world into existence. He created the names of the parts of the body. That is how these gods who follow him came into being. The origin of Atum Re upon a primordial hill in the midst of waters from which post he speaks the other gods into existence offers a parallel to the God of the book of Genesis. God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." In Genesis 2, God spoke the world into existence. We can point also to the words used for rituals of sacrifice and the rig power to create the reality that they describe. Subsequent stanzas give further details. Atum explains that he is also Re, the sun god, and he explains that not only was he present before anything, he created everything. I am the great god who came into being by himself. He is also the most powerful god, or as Atum puts it, I am he among the gods who cannot be repulsed. And finally, Atum claims that in addition to creating the world and everything in it, he knows the future. I am yesterday, while I know tomorrow. This creation text offers a satisfactory explanation as to why Atum of all gods should be the supreme god. It tells us how the world came into being, and for Heliopolis the text was convenient too, as their city served as the site of the creation of the universe. They owned Atum, so to speak, and as Atum's city, they enjoyed a political preeminence sanctioned by the Lord of Creation. When the city of Memphis rose to preeminence, however, they preferred to raise their city's own god to the top spot. His name was Ptah, and in their temple they installed a stone that told the story of Ptah, and which corrected the record. The stone is called the Shabaka stone and is today housed neither in Memphis nor in Egypt, but in the British Museum in London. It offers us a fascinating glimpse of ex post facto myth making in the service of politics. The
Yeah. So a lot of African artifacts, not just Egypt. A lot of African artifacts are housed in a museum in England. England, of all places, why do these things exist in England? Poppycock, I just don't understand why they can't give those people back their heritage, or at least give them back their artwork. You know what I'm saying? So, um, some archaeologists took a pilgrimage to Egypt, fell in love with the landscape, and heard rumors about treasures in the tombs, did some investigating, saw the mummies, paid somebody to dig that stuff out, and took it back with them to uh to England. You know, possession is 9/10 of the law, so they took it. I mean, if you really think about it, if you look at the dates that these so-called archaeologists were digging around in Africa, some of these dates coincide with slavery in America. So African ancestors were enslaved in America while the house was being raided in Africa. Don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. Run the numbers, do the math.
text, which was inscribed around 700 BCE, begins by claiming to be a fresh copy of a much older document. Now, His Majesty found this text as something which the ancestors had made, but which was worm eaten. It
Ew.
was unknown from beginning to end. Then His Majesty copied it anew so that it is better than its state formerly. How did the authors seek to verify the document's authenticity? It was inscribed by His Royal Majesty. The original copy was old. How old? Worm eaten. That's how old. Who made it? Our ancestors. In the ancient world, what is good comes from the past. Ancestors guarantee authenticity too. The text then proceeds to give Ptah a place in the story of creation. Atum is not erased. Instead, Ptah is simply inserted into the story ahead of Atum as the god who created Atum, as well as all the other 9 great gods of the Ennead. Ptah, the father who begot Atum. Ptah, the mother who bore Atum. Ptah, the great, who is the heart and tongue of the Ennead. Ptah gave birth to the gods. The text does reduce Atum's accomplishments, however, by ascribing a biological basis to them. Ptah dismisses Atum's Ennead as merely so much divine masturbation. Ptah's own Ennead, on the other hand, is the result of Ptah's mind's will, which Ptah expressed in words, whereas the Ennead of Atum came into being by his semen and his fingers. The Ennead of Ptah, however, is the teeth and lips in his mouth, which pronounced the name of everything, from which Shu and Tefnut came forth, and which was the fashioner of the Ennead. The power of the word thus belongs not to Atum, but to Ptah. After dispensing with Ptah's rival's claim to supremacy, Ptah continues and describes his role in creating the gods. Thus all the gods were formed and his Ennead was completed. Indeed, all the divine order really came into being through what the heart thought and the tongue commanded. Not only did Ptah create the gods, he contrived what nourishment the gods would receive, as well as the land, Egypt, from which the gods would receive all good things. This too is why Ptah is greater than the rest. Ptah was he who made all and brought the gods into being. He is indeed the one who brought forth the gods, for everything came from him, nourishment and provision, the offerings of the gods, and every good thing. And so Ptah was satisfied after he had made everything, as well as all the divine order. Ptah also organizes Egypt politically and puts the gods not only into their shrines, but also into the stone, clay, and wooden statues that represent them. Ptah had formed the gods, he had made the cities, he had founded the nomes or districts, he had put the gods in their shrines, he had established their offerings, he had founded their shrines, he had made their bodies like that with which their hearts were satisfied. So the gods entered into their bodies of every kind of wood, of every kind of stone, of every kind of clay, or anything which might grow upon him in which they had taken form. So all the gods, as well as their divine spirits, that is their cause, gathered themselves to him, content to be associated with the Lord of the two lands.
Lord of the two lands. That's mouthful. So Ptah started out as a human and somehow was deified ahead of well-known established gods. That sounds like some political stuff. Well, I like this god better, so I'm going to make him a god and put him ahead of everybody else. Really? Really? That's like making Kennedy the first president, the greatest president. Like, he seemed like a nice guy. He was on his way to doing some really controversial things that wicked white people wouldn't have liked. But you don't make him a god. Ugh. That's crazy. Anyway, as usual, I try to keep these lessons short so we have time to digest them and talk about them in the comments. With that being said, be blessed, take care, and I will talk to you later.